refresher, allow me to briefly recount where we left off after the joint committee hearing that we conducted last February of 2021, pertaining to the proposed measures that seek to address the pressing concerns from the ballooning pension requirements of our military and uniformed personnel, or MUP. Before the suspension of the said hearing, the committee had requested the following. One, for various MUPs to submit to the GSIS, or Government Service Insurance System, the necessary data that with respect to the new entrants. So the latter will be able to update its actuarial study dated 5 January 2021. And number two, for the agencies to submit complete data on their real properties to aid the Bureau of Internal Revenue in computing the total value of assets that may be considered in establishing the seed fund. This committee has been informed that to date, the GSIS is yet to update its actuarial study due to either incomplete or delayed submission of some agencies. Anyway, we can skip this for now, as we were told that the aggregate amount involved is not substantial enough to contribute to the reduction of subsidies coming from the General Appropriations Act, or the GAA. Not to mention that the incomplete submission of data has already delayed the crafting of a committee report. Further, during the Lenten break, the committee received a legal opinion from the Department of Justice on whether the termination of indexation and other reforms being introduced by the pending Senate bills can be applied to existing pensioners as well as those in the active service, or must it be limited to the new entrants. The committee will request the DOJ to further elaborate on this matter, considering the differing opinions on the coverage of contributions. Another concern that we need to resolve in today's hearing is the role of the GSIS should we decide to create an MUP insurance fund. Should they be merely the investment manager or the administrator of the entire pension system? Moving forward, I wish to spread into the record that Secretary of National Defense Del Lorenzana had personally asked this representation to have a separate legislation that will deal solely with retirement, fixed term for senior officers, attrition, and other officer grade distribution for the AFP. With the permission of my colleagues, the committee can actually come up with two separate committee reports, one on retirement, the other on the MUP pension fund. Some of the amendments of the retirement laws were earlier deliberated by the Subcommittee on National Defense, as reflected under Senator Gordon's Senate Bill number 1785, before the Senate resolved to consolidate all the pending bills related to pension and retirement systems of the AFP personnel, and rightly so, since the proposal to amend the retirement law is an important component of the MUP pension system. Having said all that, we hope to have a productive discussion in today's public hearing, so your committee can henceforth draft a committee report to be presented for deliberations in plenary. Let us now resume by acknowledging the presence of our resource persons who are tireless and more than patient in coming up with the right formula to address the pressing problem at hand, which is like a ticking bomb. So before it becomes even more problematic and uncontrollable, let's do our job this morning. Before I acknowledge the presence of our resource persons, physically and virtually, I'd like to acknowledge the physical presence of the no less than Senate President, Senator Tito Soto III, and attending also online or virtually is Senator Amy Marcos. Welcome, ma'am. Are you there? Senator Amy?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Okay. We have present physically are no less than our new Chief PNP, newly promoted full-fledged 4-star General Gilor Elazar. Brother Mason ni SP, ni Senate President. Of course, members of his staff, just si DL, Director for Logistics, si Lito Casimiro. And then, andito rin yung DP, Director for Personnel. Yeah, and Director Asurin. You're the DC, di ba? Okay. Welcome to the Senate. Also present virtually are, as I mentioned earlier, Secretary Delphin Lorenzana. Welcome, sir. Together with Lieutenant Colonel Juancho Rigor, the office of from the Office of the Undersecretary for Civil, Veterans and Reserve Affairs, Assistant Secretary Anglito De Leon, Undersecretary Cardoso Luna, Ding Luna, and Yusek Arnel Duco. Secretary Ed Año, represented by Assistant Secretary Manuel Felix and Assistant Secretary Esther Aldana. Secretary of Justice Maynard Guevara, represented by Attorney Annalise Manito and Attorney Norilisa Manlangit. The DOF, Department of Finance, represented by the Deputy Treasurer of the Philippines, Eduardo Marino, and Mr. J.C. Sebastian. The Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, represented by Brigadier General Reno Tolentino and Major General Adriano Perez Jr. The new Commanding General of the Philippine Army, represented here by Major General Raven Tolentino. The CG PAF, represented by General Stephen Pareño and Major Joel Perante, Major Warren Malto. And of course, I already mentioned General Elizar with, of course, General George Almaden, who's also present. The Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, represented by Jail Senior Superintendent Filipinas Fulgencio. Philippine Coast Guard, Admiral George Orsabia Jr. PRBS, represented by Police Brigadier General Sidney Hernia. Bureau of Corrections, represented by Assistant Secretary Gabriel Chaklag, Chief Inspector Neil Dionisio Buot, and Miss Mary Ann Escueto. NAMRIA, represented by Assistant Director Carter Luma Ang. The GSIS, represented by virtually, of course, Attorney Lucio Yu Jr., Attorney Giovanni Lin Picoy Marin, and Mr. Jeffrey Reyes, as well as Miss Johnny Lynn Racoma. Yeah. And the Treasurer of the Philippines, represented by the Deputy Treasurer, of course, Deputy Eduardo Marino, and the BIR represented by Attorney Roy Sion Tansinko. So with that,